Today we live in one of the most technologically advanced generations in human history. We can drive a rover on Mars, 140 million miles away from a desk in California. We have satellites that can pinpoint our location down to the specific chair that we are sitting in. We have GPS on our phones, on our watches, and even our cars. But here's the great paradox of humanity. We have mastered the science of location, but we are still searching for our destination. We can control a robot all the way on the moon, but we struggle to know exactly where our life is going in the next 40, 50, 100 years. Look at our pursuit of success, the so-called rat race. We run because we want peace. Okay, that's valid. But we buy a massive house to keep up with our peers, but end up doubling our stress because we can't pay the mortgage. We buy the most expensive mattress, but we can't find sleep. We look at screens all day, only to feel more insecure from social media. In the noise of the world, we pamper our body, but on our deathbed we realize that we forgot to fill the atma with katha and bhakti. This is Moh Kalilam. Running hard, running fast, but at the end of the day feeling like we're still standing still in the same spot. In Vachnamrut Loya 3, Maharaj has shown us that when we have Nishchay, what is possible in our lives. First he said ke game te hoy pan tyag kari shake. Second Maharaj said ke vachan ma fair pade nahi. Third Maharaj said ke mrityu thi nirbhay thai jawai. This is the power of Nishchay, the power of conviction ke mari same mane kon madi gaya chhe. Gunatito Akshardham Bhagwan Purushottamah Jano Janannidam Satyam Muchyate Bhavabandhanat. Shri Swaminarayan Bhagwan ni jai, Akshar Purushottam Maharaj ni jai, Gunatitanand Swami Maharaj ni jai, Bhagat Maharaj ni jai, Shriji Maharaj ni jai, Yogi Ji Maharaj ni jai, Pramukh Swami Maharaj ni jai, Mahant Swami Maharaj ni jai, Surat Akshardham Mahotsav ni jai. Today we live in one of the most technologically advanced generations in human history. We can drive a rover on Mars, 140 million miles away from a desk in California. We have satellites that can pinpoint our location down to the specific chair that we are sitting in. We have GPS on our phones, on our watches, and even our cars. But here's the great paradox of humanity. We have mastered the science of location, but we are still searching for our destination. We can control a robot all the way on the moon, but we struggle to know exactly where our life is going in the next 40, 50, 100 years. Now imagine for a moment you're lost in a dense, dangerous jungle. The sun is setting, it's getting dark, you hear tigers roaring in the distance. You're running in circles, you're panicking, you're sweating, your clothes are tearing on thorns. You're running for your life. Now stop running for 1 second. This isn't just a story, this is our reality, because in the Bhagavad Gita's 2nd chapter, Krishna Bhagwan uses the phrase Moh Kalilam. Moh means delusion and Kalilam means dense. He describes a forest of delusion so thick, so confusing, that we can't find a way out. Now, what does this forest of delusion look like? It looks like us, humans. Look at our pursuit of success, the so-called rat race. We run because we want peace. Okay, that's valid. But we buy a massive house to keep up with our peers, but end up doubling our stress because we can't pay the mortgage. We buy the most expensive mattress, but we can't find sleep. We look at screens all day, only to feel more insecure from social media. In the noise of the world, we pamper our body, but on our deathbed we realize that we forgot to fill the atma with katha and bhakti. This is Moh Kalilam. Running hard, running fast, but at the end of the day feeling like we're still standing still in the same spot. Now, here is the twist in the whole story. In our backpack, we actually have a map, a high-tech GPS map of the entire jungle and how to get out. But we never take it out. We keep running and thinking, I don't have time to stop and read. I have to keep running. I have to survive. I have to keep moving. And because we don't stop, we keep running in circles deeper into danger. That jungle is Maya, Sansar. That runner, that's us. And the ignored map in our backpack, that's the Vachnamrut. Now, we all feel too busy to read, to do satsang reading. But a map in a forest isn't a waste of time. It's the only thing that saves time. 5 minutes of reading the Vachnamrut every day saves 50 years of wandering in the jungle. Now, in the Vachnamrut, Maharaj has explained scientific facts 100+ years before modern scientists even discovered them. He has revealed secrets of the universe that researchers are just beginning to understand today. He has distilled the wisdom of all of Hindu Shastras into simple steps. He has revealed himself as Sarvopari Bhagwan, shown us who the Pragat Satpurush is. He has made the path to breaking out of the jungle, achieving moksha, accessible to everyone. So today, we're going to stop running in the jungle. We're going to open the map, and we're going to zoom in on one specific coordinate, Loya 3. Let's travel back in time to December 3rd, 1820. Swaminarayan Hare, Swaminarayan Hare, Vachnamrut Loya nu ત્રીજું, મહાત્મા જ્ઞાને સહિત નિશ્ચય વાડાનું, સંવત 1877ના કાર્તિક વદી 13ને દિવસ, શ્રીજી મહારાજ ગામ શ્રી લોયા મધ્યે સુરાખાચરના દરબારમાં રાત્રિને સમયે ઢોલિયા ઉપર બિરાજમાન હતા ને ધોળો છીનની ઢગલી પહેરી હતી તથા રૂનો ભરેલો ધોળો સુરવાળ પહેર્યો હતો ને મસ્તક ઉપર ધોળો ફેંટો બાંધ્યો હતો તથા ધોળી પછેડી ઓઢી હતી અને પોતાના મુખારવિંદની આગળ મુનિ તથા દેશ દેશના સત્સંગીની સભા ભરાઈને બેઠી હતી. Right now we're in the village of Loya in the darbar of Surakhacher. It's nighttime in the winter. Now just visualize the scene. Shriji Maharaj is seated on a dholio, on a platform, and because it's winter, Haribhakta have dressed him in all white, warm clothes. Now at this time, two Paramanso are going to ask a very critical question. તે સમયને વિશે શ્રીજી મહારાજને ભગવદાનંદ સ્વામી તથા શિવાનંદ સ્વામીએ પ્રશ્ન પૂછ્યો છે. ભગવાન તથા સંત તેનો જેને મહાત્મ્ય જ્ઞાને સહિત નિશ્ચય હોય તેના શા લક્ષણ છે? Here these Paramans are asking that what are the characteristics of a Haribhakt who has firm conviction, Nishchay, and Mahima in Bhagwan and the Satpurush. Now, let's pause here for 1 second. These are not ordinary people asking this question. These are Paramanso who have already given up their homes, already given up their families for Shriji Maharaj. So the question comes in our mind that why are they asking about Nishchay? Don't they already have it? And the answer to that question lies in something that Maharaj had said exactly 27 days before this Vachnamrut, in Vachnamrut Karyani 7. There Maharaj says, કે પ્રત્યક્ષ પુરુષોત્તમને વિશે જે દૃઢ નિષ્ઠા તેને આત્યંતિક કલ્યાણ કહીએ. The Paramanso, they knew this. They knew that Nishchay in the pratyaksh form of Bhagwan isn't just a nice thing to have, it's the only ticket to Akshardham. Pratyaksh means prati aksh, the form of Bhagwan that you can see directly in front of you. And so the Paramanso here are not asking for a dictionary definition of what Nishchay is, but they wanted to know, how do I check myself? How do I know if my Nishchay is rock solid? This is their way to introspect in satsang, to improve. Now notice one other detail that's hidden in this question as well. They don't just ask about Nishchay in Bhagwan. They ask about Nishchay in Bhagwan tatha sant. Because even back then, the Paramanso knew that you need Nishchay, conviction, in both tattvas. Brahm ane Parabrahm, Akshar ane Purushottam. So now this is the question that they're asking. Maharaj is going to give us 3 specific tests to check our satsang. Let's see the first sign. Maharaj says, કે પછી શ્રીજી મહારાજ બોલ્યા છે, જેને ભગવાનનો ને સંતનો મહાત્મ્ય જ્ઞાને સહિત નિશ્ચય હોય, તેથી ભગવાનને અર્થે ને સંતને અર્થે શું ન થાય. એને અર્થે કુટુંબનો ત્યાગ કરે, લોકલાજનો ત્યાગ કરે, રાજ્યનો ત્યાગ કરે, સુખનો ત્યાગ કરે, ધનનો ત્યાગ કરે, Maharaj here is saying that someone who has Nishchay in Bhagwan will give up their family, public shame, lokalaj, their kingdom, comfort, and even wealth. They'll give up whatever it takes for Bhagwan and the Satpurush. Now, this sounds impossible, but let's look at one extreme example, Jobanpagi. Jobanpagi was born in the year 1775 in Vartal to a very high-standing family. But by the age of 15, he becomes a criminal. And for the next 20 years, he becomes the absolute terror of Gujarat. Gujarat historian Maudanji Ratnu writes in Jobanpagi's biography that his network was a ruthless criminal empire. He had 64 spy bases across Gujarat. He had 52 brutal lieutenants. He had an army of hundreds of warriors who were willing to die for him and willing to kill anyone for him. He had looted the Gaikwad government treasury 2 times. He could walk into and loot entire cities like Pitlad in broad daylight while the police commissioner hides inside his house. Look at his power. His influence was so terrifying that it was said that his arrow was people's passport. It was said that his arrow traveled all the way to Kolkata in the east and all the way to Pune in the south. If someone was carrying Jobanpagi's signature arrow, which was silver embossed with the words Jobanbhaya Vartalo, then even other thieves on the road, they would see the arrow, salute the party, and let them pass. This was his influence across all of Gujarat. Look at his ruthlessness. One time when the Gaikwad government, they sent a platoon of 100 soldiers and a seasoned general named Gatke to hunt Jobanpagi. But Jobanpagi, he doesn't run. His team infiltrates Gatke's camp at night. They cut up Gatke so ferociously and so silently that no officer dared to hunt him ever again. Famous Gujarat historian Jhaverchand Meghani, he writes in a book that for Jobanpagi to kill a man, to cut him up, and to make him disappear into the fire was as easy as cooking ringarnu shak. This was the ruthlessness of Jobanpagi. Look at his terror. His terror was so absolute that it entered all the way into the home. In Charotar, which is the heart of Gujarat, if there was a child who was crying or making noise, and someone whispered into the child's ear, "Ke Jobanpagi ave che," the child would freeze. His name was enough to stop the breath of a crying child. This was Jobanpagi's fearlessness. This was Jobanpagi's ruthlessness. This was the dhak that he had established throughout all of Gujarat. Now in the year 1810, while there's a yagna happening in the village of Dabhan, Jobanpagi meets his match. Now Jobanpagi had heard that there's a Swaminarayan Bhagwan that people are saying kya Bhagwan che. And Jobanpagi wanted to test Maharaj's divinity by stealing manki godi. So he spends 3 sleepless nights trying to infiltrate the stable, but every time he approaches manki godi, he sees Maharaj's murti. Now then he decides, let me try to save my honor as a thief and steal any horse in the stable. But in front of every single horse, he sees Maharaj standing there. Now, Jobanpagi wasn't a fool. He knew magicians, he knew tricks, he knew illusions. He could defeat anyone in Gujarat. But for the first time in his life, Jobanpagi realized that I cannot defeat Bhagwan. To his eyes, this was a 5'4" person, Shriji Maharaj in front of him. But emna antarma evo Nishchay થઈ ગયો હતો કે આ સર્વોપરી ભગવાન છે. And a few more prasangs happened right after this fact that made it even more પાકું કે આ સર્વોપરી ભગવાન જ છે, મનુષ્ય લાગે છે પણ મનુષ્ય નથી. And at that time, his whole ego, it breaks. He falls at Maharaj's feet. His whole life is transformed. And this is where we see Loya 3 come to life. In this Vachnamrut, Maharaj listed very specific things that a Haribhakt with Nishchay is willing to give up. Now watch Jobanpagi check every single box. In this Vachnamrut, Maharaj said that such a Haribhakt can do lokalaj no tyag. They can give up public shame. One time Jobanpagi went to the royal court of Vadodara. The Gaikwad king offers him a hookah. Now, in the middle of open court to refuse a king is basically a slap in the face to the king. But Jobanpagi, he looks at the king like a laser, eye to eye, and he says ke mane maaf karjo, maru mathu che e Swaminarayan Bhagwane arpan che, this hookah is forbidden for me. He was more concerned with breaking his niyam than he was concerned with his standing in the court. That's Loklaj no tyag. Maharaj here says ke rajya no tyag, giving up your power. He dissolved his entire empire of criminals, and in the year 1824, he pledges to protect Vartal Mandir at the cost of his own head. He went from being the king of terror in Gujarat to being the guardian of Bhagwan's Mandir. That's Rajya no Tyag. Maharaj here says ke Sukh no Tyag. One time Jobanpagi went to the city of Petlad. He thought he was going for just one day, so he didn't take his puja with him. But his work extends out 3 days. He goes to Bochasan, Anand, but he still does not eat a single thing. He does nirjara for 3 days straight. He chose hunger over breaking his puja niyam. That's Sukh no Tyag. Maharaj here says ke dhan no tyag kare. Jobanpagi donated his best land for the upkeep of Vartal Mandir in the year 1824. He hosted massive samayos year after year like Fuldol, Ankud. He spent thousands of rupees feeding Haribhakta and Santo. That's dhan no tyag. Now for 20 years we can see that Jobanpagi was a man who took. He took lives, he took money, he took power. But after one moment of Nishchay of Shriji Maharaj, he became someone who gave everything up. He gave up his gang, he gave up his land, he gave up his ego. And this is the bottom line of this line in the Vachnamrut, that Nishchay doesn't just make us believe in Bhagwan, it compels us to give up whatever it takes to make him Raji. Akhi dunya, it becomes useless. Karan ke tamari same Bhagwan ubha che. So this is the first lakshan that Maharaj gives in this Vachnamrut. Now let's move on to the second lakshan that Maharaj gives. Later on, Maharaj says, કે જેને ભગવાનનો નિશ્ચય મહાત્મા જ્ઞાને સહિત હોય તે ભગવાનના વચનમાં ફેર પાડે નહીં અને જેમ કહે તેમ કરે. Maharaj here says કે one who has nischay, he never falters in following Bhagwan's agna. Now, it's easy to follow an agna when it makes logical sense. But what happens when the agna defies human logic? That's where Nishchay is tested. Let's go back in time to the year 1918. The construction of Sarangpur Mandir is underway. They're lifting a massive stone using a pulley system with 20 people pulling underneath. Now, this stone is huge. It weighs 3 tons. They're using 7 thick ropes to lift it up. And suddenly, one rope breaks, a second rope breaks, and within seconds, 6 out of the 7 ropes, they snap. The stone is dangling, lopsided, in the middle of the air. Now, if it falls, it's going to destroy the carvings below in the mandir, and it's also going to kill anyone within the radius of that pathar. Everyone panics. The stoneworkers there, they freeze, they flee the scene. Everyone is freaking out. At that exact moment, a Haribhakta calls Shastriji Maharaj. Shastriji Maharaj arrives. He's calm. He's unmoved. He raises his hand and he says, "Ke aap pathar nahi pade, upar chadao." Now everyone is stunned. Haribhakta asks Shastriji Maharaj, "Shastriji Maharaj, are you sure? Shouldn't we just put the pathar on the ground?" Shastriji Maharaj says, "Now upar pathar chadao." And then he gives an agna that sounds insane to any logical mind. He turns to a parshad named Soma Bhagat and he says, "Climb up the stone and tie the ropes again." Now imagine being a 6-foot, heavily built Soma Bhagat. You're standing on the ground, you look up, you see a 3-ton pathar swinging on a thread. Your brain is screaming that this is suicide. Your survival instinct is telling you to run for your life. But Soma Bhagat, he didn't look at the rope. He looked at his Guru Shastriji Maharaj. Soma Bhagat doesn't hesitate for even a second. He climbs up and he literally jumps on top of the stone. Now, why did he do that? Because he had Nishchay in Shastriji Maharaj. He had seen enough prasangs of Shastriji Maharaj with his own eyes to know કે એમના દ્વારા આજે ભગવાન આ પૃથ્વી પર પ્રગટ છે. આ શાસ્ત્રીજી મહારાજ સામાન્ય લાગે છે પણ આ પોતે અક્ષરબ્રહ્મ છે. Now, Soma Bhagat wasn't a naive person. જૂના હરિભક્તો જે અહીંયા સારંગપુર હતા, for example, હકાભાઈ ખાચર, he used to say that Soma Bhagat was an expert in mandir management. He ran the entire agricultural farm. He was extremely intelligent, bahosh hata, વ્યવહાર કુશળ હતા. But at that time, Soma Bhagat, he doesn't use his logic. He doesn't say, "Swami, should we wait for the wind to stop blowing?" He doesn't ask, Swami, are you sure you want me to jump on the stone? Why? Because that would be a fade in the vachan, a difference in the agna. And it's said in the Jivan Charitra that as Soma Bhagat is on the stone looking down at Shriji Maharaj, he felt complete safety. He knew कि कदाच आखू ब्रह्मांड ए भांगी टूटसे. The entire Brahmand might break, but this pathar e padwano nathi. And with speed and focus, Soma Bhagat, he ties the 6 ropes back onto the pathar. The stone is stabilized, they put it down. And when Soma Bhagat comes down and bows at Shriji Maharaj's feet, Shriji Maharaj emna upar khub raji che. Shriji Maharaj says, ke dhanya che Soma Bhagat, dhanya che tamne. Now this whole prasang was witnessed by a certain Jalam Sibai, who was the Limdi government administrator. He saw Shriji Maharaj's pratap, his tirtha. He saw Soma Bhagat's Nishchay. And for him, it was so astounding that he falls at Shriji Maharaj's feet, ke tame koi samanya purush, tame nathi. But this is Nishchay hoy to vachan ma fair pade nahi. Believing that the safest place in the entire universe is not on the ground. It's inside the Guru's agnas. Now, Mahant Swami Maharaj isn't going to ask us to jump on a dangling stone in the middle of the air. But he will ask us to do the simple things. Following niyams, Stri Purush Maryada, going to Sabha every week, Prapti no Vichar. And Soma Bhagat shows us that for a Nishchay Vada Haribhakta, following these agnas, it becomes second nature. So this is the second characteristic of Nishchay that Maharaj says in this Vachnamrut. Now he gives the third and most difficult characteristic of Nishchay. All the way at the end of the Vachnamrut, Maharaj says, Ke ane evo Nishchay vado je hoy, te jarur Brahma Mahol maj puge, pan bijay kai koi dhamma oro rehe nahi. Maharaj here in this section says that a Haribhakt who has Nishchay remains stable and fearless even in death. They go straight to Akshardham, but nowhere else. Now for the entire world, death is the ultimate terror. It's inevitable. It's going to happen no matter what. But no one wants to talk about it. No one wants to look at it. No one even wants to think about it. But jene Nishchay hoy, the entire script is flipped. Let's look at a prasang of Bhupendrabhai Barot. He immigrated to New York in the year 2018. He was a Nishthavan Haribhakt at Flushing Mandir, Seva, Sabha, Parasabhav. But in 2021, he's diagnosed with 2 heart blockages. He has stents put in. And then in the year 2022, he's diagnosed with large B-cell lymphoma, which is cancer. Now, the whole family is anxious. But Bhupendrabhai, he's calm. And he gives his family samjhan instead. Ki હું મહંત સ્વામી મહારાજના હાથમાં જ છું અને સ્વામી જે કરશે એ સારું જ થવાનું છે. Now, on September 20th, 2024, he makes a strange announcement. He tells his family કે મહંત સ્વામી મહારાજ મને કહી ગયા છે કે exactly 5 દિવસમાં મને અક્ષરધામમાં લઈ જવાના છે. Now the family, they look at each other. They think that this must be the heavy chemotherapy medicine he's on. He must be hallucinating. But Bhupendrabhai, he wasn't guessing. He was counting. Because on September 3rd, in the ICU, he doubles down on his statement. He says કે આ 100% પાક્કું છે, time fixed છે, અને September 25th at 2:30 p.m. હું અક્ષરધામમાં જવાનો છું. Now September 25th, that morning arrives. He starts describing Akshardham. He says કે મને મહારાજ દેખાય છે. Maharaj ગુલાબી વસ્ત્રો ધારણ કરી રાખ્યા છે, meaning that Maharaj is wearing pink clothes. He says કે મહંત સ્વામી મહારાજ એ શ્રીજી મહારાજને નૌકા વિહાર કરી રહ્યા છે. That Mahant Swami Maharaj is taking Maharaj around on a boat in an ocean of happiness. And yes, even later they confirmed that Mahant Swami Maharajના જે નાના અક્ષર પુરુષોત્તમ મહારાજ છે, the Chalmurti, that same Akshar Purushottam Maharaj was also wearing pink vastra on that same day. But then the family starts asking him, can you describe Akshardham a little bit more? And then eventually he says, કે મને સુવા દો, તમે જ્યારે અક્ષરધામમાં જશો, ત્યારે તમને પણ આ બધું દેખાશે. Now the time is getting closer. The doctors are checking the monitors, but Bhupendrabhai, he's looking at the clock. 2:28 p.m., he looks upward. And at 2:30 p.m., exact to the second, he closes his eyes and he goes to Dham. There is no panic. There is no fear. There's only precision. Why? because he wasn't facing death. He was just keeping an appointment given by Mahant Swami Maharaj. Now take a moment to just absorb that prasang. The world saw a man losing his battle in a hospital room. But Bhupendrabhai had Nishchay and Mahant Swami Maharaj ke aa mokshnu dwar જ છે, સાક્ષાત અક્ષર બ્રહ્મ જ છે. And because of this, he was nirbhay, he was fearless, because he knew that at 2:30 p.m., his heart may stop beating, but the door to Akshardham will be wide open. Now, this is not just a one-time prasang, but there are many cases in satsang, even in the past 5 years, that have been fully documented. Male and female, young and old. We just saw in the last 2 years of Akshardham Satra, first-hand interviews of family members who witnessed these prasangs with their own eyes, photo, video footage of these entire prasangs. ગુણાતીયન સ્વામીની વાતોમાં કહ્યું છે કે પૂર્વે શાસ્ત્રોમાં તો ખાલી ભગવાન 2-3ને તેડવા માટે આવ્યા છે, પણ આ સત્સંગમાં તો ભગવાન ઘરો ઘર તેડવા માટે આવે છે. That's why Maharaj ends this Vachnamrut by saying કે એવો નિશ્ચયવાળો જે હોય તે જરૂર બ્રહ્મ મહોલ માં જ પૂગે. Straight to Akshardham. So now let's take a step back from this entire Vachnamrut. We've traveled from the jungle of Maya to the Darbar in Loya. In Vachnamrut Loya 3, Maharaj has shown us that when we have Nishchay, what is possible in our lives. First he said ke gamme te hoy pan tyag kari shake. The whole world is running to fill their pockets with money and fame. But Jobanpagi, he gave it all up. Why? Because when you hold a diamond in your hand, it's easy to drop the pebbles in the dust. Bhagwan and his Satpurushma Nishchay thai jai, pachi giving up the world for them, it becomes easy. Second, Maharaj said ke vachan ma fair pade nahi. The entire world is paralyzed by overthinking, trying to calculate every risk, every decision. But Soma Bhagat, he didn't fight logic. He followed Shriji Maharaj's agna to the T. You stop worrying about the turbulence because you trust the pilot's decisions. Third, Maharaj said ke mrityu thi nirbhay thai jawai. The whole world is terrified of what will happen to me at the end. But Bhupendrabhai, he didn't have to practice being brave. Nishchay makes us fearless even from the fear of death itself. This is the power of Nishchay, the power of conviction ke mari same mane kon madi gaya chhe. This is what the legends in satsang that we hear about, like Dada Khachar, Kushal Kuwarba, Rajbai, Maganbai, Harmanbai, Subhashbai, Africa, this is what they were living on. They were experiencing samadhi 24/7 because pratyaksh purushottamne drad nishtha e જ આત્યંતિક કલ્યાણ છે. So now let's go back all the way to where we started. The jungle, the forest, Mo Kalilam. The sun is still setting. The tigers are still roaring. The world is still a scary place with twists and turns in our life. We will face problems in our life, no doubt. But look at us. We're not running in circles anymore. We're not panicking. Why? કારણ કે આ બ્રહ્માંડમાં આપણા જેવા ભાગ્યશાળી કોઈ છે જ નહીં. We have the map right in front of us. And more importantly, we have the guide. અત્યારે, આ દેહે, while you and I are breathing, Akshardham Satpurush આ પૃથ્વી ઉપર વિચરી રહ્યા છે, Mahant Swami Maharaj. Maharajની કેટલી દયા છે. He didn't just give us directions and leave. He stayed on this earth through the Akshardham Guru. So every time Mahant Swami Maharaj reads our letters, every time he gives us Ashirvad and it solves questions in our mind, every time he answers our prathanas from thousands of miles away, that is him holding our hand in the forest. He is that physical bridge that connects us directly to Shriji Maharaj. And as we just saw with Bhupendra Kaka's prasang, his job doesn't just end there, but when the time comes, he picks us up and carries us all the way to Akshardham. All we have to do is have ultimate mahima and conviction, મહાત્મા સહિત નિશ્ચય. તો આપણે મહારાજ સ્વામીના ચરણોમાં પ્રાર્થના કરીએ કે આવો જ મહાત્મા સહિત નિશ્ચય આપણા જીવમાં દ્રઢ થાય. ઇતિ વચનામૃતમ, એવી રીતે વચનામૃત લોયાનું ત્રીજું જે તે થયું. શ્રી સ્વામિનારાયણ ભગવાનની જય.
Thank you for joining us today and listening with such devotion. Bhagwan Swaminarayan has taught us the power of listening to katha. It purifies our mind and brings us closer to God. So if this katha helped you, give it a like, subscribe for more, and share it with someone you care about. Until next time, Jai Swaminarayan.